Similar to how wines have terroir, an oyster has merroir. It's a sense of place. It's a taste of the area that it's grown. It's dependent on salinity, water quality, mineral content in the water, and every oyster is going to taste a little bit different. Our oyster, being grown here in South Carolina, tastes like our South Carolina waterways. It gives folks that come into restaurants a taste of our culture and the Lowcountry. I had a friend who said that eating one of our sea clouds is like getting hit in the face by a big wave of the ocean. I was working for the SCDNR in 2013 and started thinking about oyster farming, saw that there was no local single oysters being produced for raw bars for the restaurants downtown. And over a few years of doing research, decided to make a stab at it and to start a farm. In 2015, me and my business partner, Josh, began Barrier Island Oyster Company, started to seek permits to lease waterway and start our farm.
About 3 years ago, I was back visiting Charleston with my wife and hanging out with Jared. And one night, staying up late, talking, and he mentioned that he had, been kicking around this idea for a long time about an oyster farm. And I was really just kind of getting into oysters at the time in terms of, I like to eat them raw, but getting a sense of how, they can be like wines and you can try them from different regions and all those factors, really just, I was just learning about it and I was really into it. So Kendra, my wife, and I had been going out to eat and doing that a lot, and it immediately caught my interest. It fit together really well, and Jared sold me on the concept and the need and the market here. We spent about 2 years from that point working on permits and putting everything together to launch the company. At that point, it's been essentially just all systems go for 3 years now.
Yeah, our farm's located in the North Edisto watershed. We're about 2 miles from open ocean on the north end of Edisto Island in Ocella Creek. We get seed from a hatchery down in Beaufort. All of our seed is from broodstock that's South Carolina oysters. We put it into mesh bags that go into our cages. A small mesh is what we start with, and as those oysters are graded for size and as they grow, we reduce densities and they go into a larger mesh so that nutrients can flow through the bags and that the oysters can feed appropriately, and they grow from 5 millimeters to market size as we graduate them up. Our sea clouds are unique to South Carolina in that they're a farmed oyster rather than a wild oyster. We're able to tumble them and to shape them into a cup and a single oyster. They're singly set at the hatchery that we purchased them from, and then as they grow in our cages and they're tied tumbled, they chip away the edges, and that promotes a round shape and a cup oyster that's suitable for the raw bar market.
Being able to have a South Carolina product in Charleston during the summer is actually a very big deal, because you have a lot of tourists here. This is the high season for a lot of the restaurants, and up until now, even if they could get a single, they had a South Carolina single from a wild harvester or somebody who was knocking off the clusters or whatever they were doing. You still couldn't get it in the summertime. It was only available roughly October to May. So as of last year, because of the kinds of mariculture that we're doing and some others are doing, and you're able to keep the oyster in continuous submersion, that makes it safe to harvest in the summertime. And there are protocols about getting it out and getting it cool immediately and a lot of other things like that. But essentially, now we can certify that this oyster has been underwater for long enough period of time to make it safe to eat during the summertime, even when it's warm out. And that's a completely new thing here, and that has been both beneficial for the chefs, consumers, and has brought new people into the market looking to raise these things too.
The best moments for me are when we go into restaurants and we let the chefs taste the oysters, and sometimes they'll be a little standoffish, and once they start shucking them and passing them around to their other chefs, the smiles on their face and the reaction they have to this South Carolina oyster in a single cup shell is great.
You definitely can't beat the view, and the office is pretty nice. I do think that the folks that live on this dock, essentially have owned this dock for generations, they'll tell you that working on the water will beat you up. It's not something that you can do forever. right now we're youngish, strong enough, and we can do this. But ultimately, for me, it's the challenge of each new hurdle we're trying to climb. So the last year has been essentially to establish ourselves, to get our farm up and running, to get our oysters in the water, to grow them, to get our first harvest to market, to find the restaurant partners. All of these things have been, have been a growth from essentially nothing to something. And now it's like, okay, how do we take something and make it bigger? And that challenge is what keeps me interested in whether, in 5 years I'm still on the water every day or I'm doing other things, to expand the company. It doesn't really matter to me. I just want to be part of something that is like constantly challenging me and constantly showing me progress, and I get that satisfaction of the job well done.
Yeah, what keeps us going is producing that oyster that we hope to grow and to have people taste them and try them, and the response that we get to the oyster from restaurants and just the general consumer alike. It's fun. We're out here working on the water, working our dream. So it's great.